Good evening and welcome to the Buffalo Wild Wings in Concord, New Hampshire for our second annual NHSportsPage.com Basketball Coaches Conference, our Coaches Summit. And we bring some of the best from all across the state in here. They join us in the middle of summer, sort of like the basketball hot stove season, if you will. My name is Pete Terrier, along with Dave Haley. It's all brought to you by our friends at Sentinel Title Services. And I'll just go around the table and talk about some of the coaches. We got a coach from all four of the divisions in New Hampshire. We'll start over there. We've got Tim Goodridge from Merrimack, the Tomahawks head coach. Tim, thanks for coming out.
Thank you very much for having me here tonight.
We also got Jamie Hayes from Newmarket, Division 4. We got Eric Saucier from Conant, Division 3. And over to my left, Keith Maddie from Lebanon. So, guys, we really appreciate you spending some time in the summertime. I know you guys are busy this off-season, even though it is your off-season. Keith, you were just talking about the fact that you just came back from Kentucky involved with a tournament down there. So tell us what it was like down in Bluegrass country, and are some of your players from Lebanon High School getting recruited by Big Blue like we know some other New Hampshire guys are?
I wish they were, but they're not. But we're down at the Division I Nationals for the 16U because I'm actually more of a dad down there than anything else. And it was a lot of fun, and it's a different world. But there was actually multiple New Hampshire teams down there, and they all acquitted themselves really well. It was actually a lot of fun.
Do you find the level of play, compared to, with the AAU tournaments and things like that, compared to high school basketball in New Hampshire? I mean, is it just another level?
No, you know what? I actually think the level of play in New Hampshire is pretty good. And like I just said, we just saw the DC Blue Devils play down there, and they're a bunch of New Hampshire kids, and a lot of them are NHIAA kids. And the New Hampshire Fire were down there, a lot of Nashua and Milford area kids, and the Longhorns Basketball Club, which is a lot of Upper Valley type kids. And they did great, and our kids are no different than anywhere else. If they've worked hard at the game, they do well, and our kids do. So it was a ton of fun playing players from all over the country, and they acquitted themselves very well.
It's funny when you hear sometimes that people say, well, level of play in NCAA basketball isn't that good, or in New Hampshire as general. I've heard people say in regards to AAU, we're 45th in the nation out of 50 and so forth. You look at the kids that go prep or something, obviously Wenyon, everybody's talking about Wenyon, who just got offered by Duke in Kentucky. But you look at LeBlanc, who went off, was at Dover and went off to prep. You look at, there's kids all over that have gone prep. Dimitri Flores was another one, who are playing Division I basketball. It almost feels like you're shortcutting New Hampshire kids because these kids are going Division I or Division II at maybe a higher rate than usual, but maybe they're not just staying in the NCAA. I'll start with you, Coach Goodridge. What are your thoughts on the level of play and that perception?
Well, I think obviously I think Keith hit it right on the nose. Our kids are just as good as any other kids in the country. I just think we're a smaller type of state, so when you're playing like New York, they have a lot more to choose from and things like that. But I've said for years, I think that New Hampshire basketball is really good. I think we have, obviously there's good coaches here. They're well coached. For the most part, they're pretty good students. And, if I was a college coach, I might look into New Hampshire kids a little more because a lot of college kids have gone off and had great careers in college.
What do you think it is in Division IV? You played in Division III, you coached in Division III before Newmarket went down. But what have you seen in the last 5-6 years as far as the level of play? Is it? I asked this specifically to you because Groveton and Colebrook, the Mills closed. Those schools got smaller. It's not that they have great coaches, Hall of Fame coaches there, but those have got smaller. So the power structure's kind of changed a little bit. Now it's Epping and it's Derryfield and it's Newmarket. What have you seen?
Yeah, I think since I've come in, when we first came into Division IV, Class S at the time. There were some really bad teams, and only half your games you really had to really worry about to make an effort to win. And now there are no easy games. Every team shows up to compete. They have some good players. There's some better coaches out there, and the level of play has definitely rise.
Do you feel like these kids are playing more during the summer than they used to, or is it about the same? It feels like they're playing more, but
yeah, I think there are more opportunities.
Yeah.
For kids to play in the summer.
Yeah. What about you, Eric? What do you see at Division III? Do you think it goes in waves in Division III?
It goes in waves. Obviously, with all the the number changes with the high schools and stuff. I mean, this year I think we had 26 or 27 teams in our division, so we're seeing different teams every year. Some teams drop out, some teams drop in. I mean, Jamie used to be in Division III. We played him in a final, and then he drops out. Pelham comes in this year, so every year it seems like it's a change.
Yeah.
You know?
I wanted to ask Jamie, we talked about Keith being down in Kentucky at a top AAU tournament. We all watched Wendy and Gabriel on ESPNU playing for the Mass Rivals in the championship game and getting all these offers. But you were in a more small school type of setting this past weekend at Epping High School. I know Sean Young, the head coach at Epping, put together that tournament, and your team was involved, and a bunch of other area teams were involved in that. Do you look at a situation like that where you're playing against a lot of schools that you may be playing during the course of the regular season, or other schools maybe from upper divisions, higher divisions within your state? Do you think that that's as important as going to a AAU tournament, facing top competition around the country?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we went 0-5 this weekend. We played a team from Maine, played a team from Massachusetts, and 3 either Division I or Division II schools. And our kids went out and competed. I think they figured out that there's another level that we need to get to, and I think that that's very beneficial. It doesn't do you any good to like you said, go just play schools that are smaller than you and beat up on them. Or for us, it's the same level of competition as going and taking our kids to another state to play in a national level tournament. So I think we got a lot out of it.
Do you go down to Massachusetts a lot? Is that something like teams, like a Merrimack or a Nashua? Do you find it's beneficial to play Massachusetts teams during the summer?
Well, I always like playing different teams. I mean, we're in Merrimack. It seems like we go to the Christmas tournament in Manchester. We play the same teams up there. Then we play the same 19 or 8. So when we have an opportunity to play somebody different, like for an example, tomorrow we're going to play Conant and Milford in a 3-way scrimmage over at Milford, and I just find that much better for our kids because you're getting different ideas, different looks, and last weekend we did play Malden, Mass, and Chelmsford, and it was just a whole new look, and it was good to play different teams, and then I welcome the opportunity to play different schools.
Tim, how is the participation in the summertime? I know some years better than others, but is it hard to get these kids to kind of buy in that, look, this is, maybe you play baseball as well this time of year, but, this is when we're kind of gelling as a team and really trying to determine what our rotation is. Is it more difficult now to get these kids to play Summer League than it used to be 5-10 years ago?
Well, that's a tough question. It depends on how how committed your team is. Fortunately, this year we've had like 15 kids showing up every night, and it's almost a shame in some ways. I don't mean that's great. We got 15 kids coming, but you're playing a 22-minute game, half running time, and you got 15 kids. So you're kind of in some ways almost turning them back, not giving them enough of what they, if you follow what I'm saying. But right now, our participation level is very high. There's been years where it's been thin. And those thin years, is you see it in, January when you're whatever record, and it isn't what you want it to be because they didn't put the time in now. I think you really have to put the time in now to be good down the road. Now, we obviously, at Merrimack, we really want kids to play other sports. We're not, we want kids to play football. We want kids to play soccer. We want kids to participate in as many sports as possible because they're only in high school one time, and that's just our philosophy at Merrimack. But right now we're a basketball town, so we do get an awful lot of kids that want to play. We have 8 returning seniors this year, and we have high expectations this year, so everybody wants to be part of it right now.
Keith, one of the things I hear, I always take, I live in Hampton, right by Winnicott High School, and I always take my 8-year-old daughter for walks through the neighborhoods there. There has to be 20 hoops. Like once every 3 houses, there's a basketball hoop in somebody's driveway. All these little suburbs where they've all these room for these kids. I've never seen a kid shooting hoop. I'm just saying. And I've gone for dozens of walk. And I was saying to another coach, when's the last time you don't seem to find kids doing pickup games on their own. And I know you set it up where, you got KJ and the rest of the kids, and you can say, okay, we got open gym at the high school, or here's our AAU practice with the Longhorns. But do you find that kids are different today? They want it set up for them more, or are they spoiled by that, or just like, how does that work?
And it's kind of spinning off of what Coach Goodrich said is, we want our kids to play other sports, but there's 168 hours in the week. And if a kid prioritizes the Xbox or hanging out more, than getting better at shooting the ball or getting better at this sport.
Yeah.
That's fine, but only 5 get to play, and it's a 32-minute game, and it's you can't say that it's not important to you and then be disappointed, when you don't play that much. And we're pretty clear with kids, because that's what our job is like to teach kids that if you work hard at something, you get better at it, and then you get what you want. So, we have open gyms, but we shoot for 45 minutes before we, play. And, we play in a league, and they don't have to come, and nobody gets punished for not coming. But, the thing about basketball, and it's not the same as other sports, you have to play basketball to be good at it. You have to work at basketball to be good at it. And I love soccer, but a superior athlete can excel at soccer. I love football. A superior athlete can excel at football. You can't cheat basketball. There's no cheating our sport, and our kids put in the time, and I really think that's why we're good right now. And when our kids haven't put in the time, we weren't as good. So, those hoops that don't get used, that's indicative of how much the kids really, how important it is to them.
Do you see that, Sauce, over in your area?
Well,
what do you see over there?
I mean, back when I first started, kids were always out there playing. They have a Humiston where kids always used to play, and lately, last couple of years, even a couple of my guys have been saying that there aren't many runs over there, So, but one of the key things we do is, a lot of guys go to the bubble. We're lucky where we have Franklin Pierce, where we have that facility. So I always tell the guys, if you're going to go work out, grab somebody else. I tell them our motto is, in the summer, it's your chance to get better individually. The winter is for us to get better as a team. You're not really going to get better as a team in the summer. I mean, it's good to play and stuff, but that's your time to get better individually. Then the season comes, we'll get better as a team. So.
Eric, I want to ask you this, and I wonder what a guy like Tim Goodrich coaching in Division I has to think about, or if he even thinks about it. I talk to other D1 coaches, and they're like, hey, all I care about is D1. I don't know anything about this Conan Orioles program and this coach Eric Saucier, but I'm wondering how much of the higher divisions that you follow, because I see you at games, and it doesn't have to be a Division III game. You seem to really, and I'm sure all you guys are sort of, basketball sponges. You just want to see as much as you possibly can. But when you look at some of these upper divisions, Division I, Division II, whatever it is, you get a chance to play against some competition like that. What do you look for most in these other teams, maybe what some of these other coaches do?
Oh, yeah. I mean, being a basketball junkie, you're always trying to get as much basketball as you can. I mean, like Timmy said, we're going to play them tomorrow night. It's great to play them. We play Keith all the time in the Christmas tournament. We played them like 3 or 4 times. It always comes down the wire. So it's always good for us to play other teams. I'm sure as these other coaches, we always follow the other divisions because you always want to know what's going across the state. It's just not about, we were talking about New Hampshire and representing the state, and I think it's important that you watch the other schools, you know what's going on, and you want to play the best teams. We want to play Tim. We want to play Keith. We want to play them in the summer. You want to play, as Tim was saying, you want to play the best teams you can. You want to get as best as you can. So whenever you have the opportunity to play somebody else, that's always beneficial.
So, Tim, let me ask you this. When you go into a situation like tomorrow night, you're going to tell your team what about this Conan Orioles team? Will you tell them a lot?
I don't think I have to tell them much because we've played them for the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, and I want to tell you right now, Conan could compete in Division I or L or whatever you want to talk about it. I'm not going to say they're going to win it every year, but they would be an extremely competitive team in our league. He does an outstanding job, and all I can think about Conan basketball is they're kind of like the Centrals of our league. Every year Central's going to be good no matter what. And that's what Conan's all about. And so I tell my kids, you better be ready to play, or this team's going to whip you up. That's about the bottom line.
I'd love to hear kind of go around. We can start with Tim and go to Jamie, Eric, and then Keith. But who are the guys in your division that you kind of go to for information? Or maybe if there's I know you and Doc are close, you and Tim Cronin, and you 3 are kind of the big 3 in Division I. But I mean,
Talk about this?
Stature.
I don't think Tim Cronin's as big as me and Doc.
Who are the guys that you or are there maybe other coaches?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I think in our league, and we talk about this all the time, and we really have like 19 quality coaches in our league, and everybody seems to get along pretty good. I mean, there's a few guys that don't get along, this and that, but for the most part, every coach in our league is really there for the right reason. They're there to, for sportsmanship, to teach their kids to be better people, and we have a very nice core group right now.
You just evading that question. There's got to be a couple of guys that you go to.
Well, I mean, me and Tim Cronin have been friends for years.
Nate Stanton refers to you and Doc as the godfathers of Division One. Is that sort of like one of those?
Tim Cronin was coaching JVs
Yeah.
when I was coaching JVs, and we've become very good friends over the years. And I really look up to him. I think he does an outstanding
terrific,
job at Spalding. And if I need to get some information, I call him, and I know it's quality information. And that's kind of the guy I go to is Tim Cronin from Spalding.
Yeah. What about you in Division Four?
I think we have a lot of very good coaches as well.
Because your coaches stayed there for a long time.
Yeah.
That's a great thing.
Right. There's very little turnover in our division, and and that's part of what has helped make the teams more competitive. Sean Young at Epping, Jay Dara at Pittsfield, Sam Natty from Lisbon up north, and Trevor Howard, and I mean there's just a lot of good coaches. I mean almost every coach that I contact would give me a good scouting report and give me good information. They know what they're talking about. So it's nice to be able to have a good network of guys to reach out to.
Yeah. I know you and Matt Regan have become close lately.
Matt came in the division last year, and we talked a lot this year. Dave Chase, another guy I talked to a lot. Dave knows all the coaches, but it seems like in our division, you have the North Country and then you have the South, and we don't see any of the North Country teams, and they don't see any of the Southern teams. So it seems like I talk more with the Southern guys than I do the Northern guys. I used to talk to Don Picard a lot. But Donnie's coaching the girls now. But it's the same in our division. You can contact anybody at any time, and they'll be free to give you information.
Yeah.
Keith, what's the story with the landscape in D2?
Well, we don't always all get along. I'm not going to look at the camera and say something. But Dave Smith is, obviously the epitome of class. He's our Papa Bear, and he's really set a good standard for everybody else in our league.
Cole Brown Northwood Academy,
Yeah,
just
Cole,
to let everybody know.
And so Dave's great and everything. He shares with everybody, and he's and we all pretty much share. We don't ask people that we know won't share with us anyway. We've had our black sheep through the years, and but we for the most part get along, and it's interesting. We're all really competitive individuals. So just because we don't get along doesn't mean they're not good people or whatnot.
I think it's kind of fun when you guys don't get along.
We don't always all get along, and I don't think these guys were completely 100% truthful. But Dave Smith's a great guy. Jim Mulvey's an excellent coach. It's kind of like North Country, with the South. We don't really see the same guys as Portsmouth, but obviously I love watching Portsmouth play, and we've actually had some high turnover over the last few years, but I think we got a lot of really good young coaches coming up, like Cole and whatnot, Cole Etten from Bishop Brady. So it's been a lot of fun. It makes it fun. It makes it more interesting.
I got a question for you, Keith, and I know, Tim, you were in a situation a couple of years ago that Keith is now in. Keith has the pleasure, I guess you could say, a pleasure of coaching your own son. And your son, KJ Maddie, is a kid who's been around that Lebanon program for as long as he's been able to dribble a basketball, hold a basketball. Now he's getting into his junior season. He's emerged as one of the top players in the state. How is that? I remember talking to you last year after a tough loss at home against Manchester West when KJ missed a couple of free throws that might have put you in better position to win. And, I talked to you after the game about how you have to deal with that not only as a coach but as a dad as well. So how has that been for you, watching him grow and really blossom into a great young player?
I tell you, me and Coach Goodrich were just talking about what it's like to coach our kid and how special it is. And this is a really unique time for me and for him, and we've waited a long time for it. You got to wear two hats. And when we get home, we talk basketball and nothing but basketball at home, but there's no carryover. And I'm fortunate because he's a great kid and I can be hard on him. But, it's just a really special time. I can't believe it's half over. He's going to be a junior next year already. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. It's hard, though, when he missed that free throw at the end of the West game. That was tough. But and I can't say it's just the same as any other kid missing because that wouldn't be truthful. But it's really special. It's really fun. I'm fortunate to have him as my kid, and I can't. I want these 2 years to go by so slowly because I'm enjoying it tremendously.
Unfortunately, they go by very, very fast.
That's what coaches just say.
They will. And what I like to say about that, I think you hit it right on the nose. My kids taught me more about coaching. I'll never forget it. My son Chris is like 11 years old or 12 years old, and he's like an all-star baseball player. And I'm coaching the Little League team, and he doesn't want to play Little League anymore. I'm like, why? And he says, because all you ever do is yell at me. So I'm like, that taught me right there, if my kids aren't having fun, I'm not doing the right thing. So when I try to you can't. It's humanly impossible to treat them the same. But I think you wind up being a little harder on them no matter what. And probably one of my best experiences it was my birthday. Both my boys started, and it was the first Merrimack championship in 35 years at Durham. That was a great day, and I promised them I said, if you guys win this game, you'll never have to buy me another birthday present, and they haven't to this day.
They're holding holding you to that.
And then on the other side, at the other end of it, they were very good players, and you're always going to get that. What you're being favorite to your kids, or this or that, or whether. Now, my son Brian was a great kid, but he was really into football and baseball, and he didn't put the time into basketball, so he didn't play as much, and that was really hard as a coach not to play your kids sometimes. You know what I mean? So I've been through it a little bit, And then my daughter, you couldn't tell her anything. She made 25 straight free throws, and I say, hey, you made 25 straight. She misses it. It's my fault, So, but kids, it's a great reward to coach your kids and enjoy it because it does go by very fast.
What's it like? I'd like to hear from all you guys because I think it's something like 25 or 26 Final Fours between the four of you. Pete and I not adding anything to that equation. But what is it like? I mean, just kind of go around. I mean, I'll start with Jamie and kind of go around. But how do you prepare your kids to go to Plymouth or to go to Southern New Hampshire? You've been in a couple different venues. Is there anything special you do? Or is there nothing special at all? Because I know from covering you guys from the Jamboree all the way. How it's a bigger stage. I remember seeing you before you played Sauhegan a couple of years ago, and you were kind of you were in a hallway by yourself, sort of gathering yourself before that game. It is a huge deal. I've spoken to you, after some very big games when you've won championships. Is there anything special you do with those kids, like Final Four? You try to keep it the same.
Well, we kind of start preparing our kids from day one about when we're in Plymouth at the end of the year, we need to be loud. It's going to be loud there, and stuff like that. So we kind of. From day one, the expectation is that it's going to be a big atmosphere. It's going to be it's going to be loud. You need to be loud, and we just start preparing every game to be.
Communicating on the floor.
Yeah. Yep. And the game is the game. I mean, if it's a pressure situation in the regular season, it's the same in the playoffs. We start practicing when we get to February about widening the floor out because of the college floor and spacing a little bit and everything. But once the ball goes up, the game is the game. So it's pretty much the same.
Yeah. Do you do anything special, Coach?
I try not to. It's it's really hard. I try to really just leave it like this. Hey, this is what we worked for all year long. Make it fun, And if you're making it fun, and obviously the pressure's bigger and this and that, but I think it really starts with the coach too. You have to be really calm about yourself, and like if you're a nervous wreck and you're doing different things and you're getting them out of rhythm, then I don't think you're really helping your kids. I think if you just, hey, here we're going, this is what we work for, we're in Durham, have a great time, it's going to go by quick, enjoy it, it's going to be loud, have some fun, and I think that's how I've approached it, and fortunately we've been pretty successful with that.
Yeah, in our preseason meeting, along with Tim, we don't change anything. In the preseason meeting every year, we say, we have one goal, and this is the only time, we all know what the goal is. We don't say it, and after today, we don't say anything until the end of the year. So everybody in the back of their minds knows what the goal is. We start from day one, but when it comes to Final Four time, we don't change anything at all. The one big thing is at Conant, we basically have a box. So everybody says, oh, you're going to do the same things when you get to the big floor, but a floor is a floor. So we practice at our gym. We used to go to Franklin Pierce, but I stopped that like 4 years ago. We just practice at our gym. We don't change anything.
How about you, Keith?
Yeah, the same idea is that kids do what they practice every day. So what you should be doing is practicing every day for that moment.
Yeah.
So when we get there, eventually it's you do the work and you live with the results, and that's kind of what we do. Is I wish there was something special that we could do at that moment, but really, after the tremendous amount of time we spent with these kids getting up to that moment, changing anything would almost be foolish. It's we worked all year for one moment, and then you got to be true to what you believe, and that's what we do.
And I remember a couple of years ago, you were throwing a little bit of a curveball where you were supposed to be playing in the Final Four, UNH, Mother Nature, with some snow. You ended up having to move the game to Exeter High School. Was that tough to deal with?
I'm not ready to talk about that yet. So. No, it was tough, and that's what basketball. But the thing is like we're just saying, you do what you do. So even though we missed those practices, and it was hard on me. I mean, I don't think that's why we lost. I mean, Portsmouth played a great game, and they held their composure down the stretch. And Yeah, it was difficult, but the kids, we'd had all those practices preparing up to that, and the day before, the 2 days before, we didn't get to practice, and because we're all type A to a certain extent about basketball, but the kids went out and they performed, and we came up a little short against a great team. So I can live with that, but it was tough. That was tough.
I have one comment on that. I'd like to say I'm really disappointed that more teams don't have the opportunity to go to UNH like they used to, or to Plymouth, or to. So I mean, these kids. We want to compete against the AAUs or this or that. Let's make it important for these kids and get more teams. Like in our league now, only 4 teams go. And some of these teams might not go for 20 years. I mean, and when there was 12 or 8 teams going, the odds were a little better.
So you think the quarterfinals should go back?
It should be at UNH. I think that's what we really, and I think it was. I read about that. It was very unfair that they had to go play at Exeter, and not that Exeter's a great place, great home, but they just missed out on what you really work for is to get to that big stage. And I just think more teams should be able to do that. That's all.
Yeah, no, that's another thing that we were talking about earlier is just preparing those kids. But one thing I had heard is one of the coaches Division I said to me once, to kind of change the topic a little bit, is he said, no kids want to be the 9th man anymore. And he said, I find more and more that if a kid isn't going to be in the rotation, he's more apt to quit than he used to be 10, 15 years ago. And they sort of don't buy into the whole, I'm going to be a good practice player and I'm going to contribute in other ways. Do you find that at all? I mean, I open it up to any of you guys. Start with you, Jamie. Yeah. But I mean, do you find that kids, it's a little different now?
Yeah. I mean, last year we had 12 kids in our high school program. No JV team for the first time in Newmarket's, history. And we had 3 seniors and 1 junior not come back because they weren't going to be starters. They weren't going to be the guy. And they didn't want to go through the role of just being a practice player and earning minutes and everything. So it's easier for them to not come out and be able to do whatever they wanted, ski or whatever. But they didn't have to explain to their friends why they weren't playing, or I don't know what it was, but it's very common now. The last 4 years we've had a junior not come out for the team, as played varsity as a sophomore and didn't come back their junior year because they just didn't think they were going to get the minutes.
That doesn't happen in Jaffrey.
No, to be honest, I've actually been really lucky. One thing the kids will tell you is that I am straightforward with them. I'll tell them their roles. I'll tell them if they're allowed to shoot, not shoot, if they haven't put in the time. I've only had, I've actually had a couple kids that were just happy to be the 12th man on the team. Their parents weren't so happy, but, they were happy. And, like I said, I've been really lucky with guys knowing their role, and if you don't like your role, then you're free to walk at any point. So I make that clear too. And I've had a couple walk. That's fine. The next kid will come in, and we'll go to war with what we got.
It's kind of nice having that power, and guys like Tim and Keith, who have been doing this for almost 20 years now. You're able to have that kind of power, that cachet, that you can kind of say, hey, this is the way it is. It's my way or the highway.
Well, what's interesting, and I found, I'm curious what Coach Goodrich would say, and you guys would say, is we used to have 65, 70 kids trying for basketball. And now they know, because they know if they don't play in the summer, they know if they don't play, they know. They kind of have figured there's multiple opportunities to figure out where you rank. So now, I don't even have to cut kids like I used to. But I do think kids, like I had 5 seniors last year, and they didn't play that much. They're great kids. And they knew going in, as long as you're honest with them, this is what you're going to get out of it. And, sometimes they will stick it out and suck it up. But what I've seen is a lot of kids, like Dave was saying, that just don't want to come out and compete for those spots anymore. But I've been lucky. I've had a lot of great seniors suck it up and play the whole year and know they're not going to play. They knew from day one, and then they realized around Christmas, I'm not kidding. And they've been actually great additions to the team. It's actually somewhat liberating for a kid when they know they're not going to get in, and they can know, hey, you can be the greatest program, I don't want to say cheerleader, but enthusiastic. You can make it great for yourself, or you can make it suck for yourself. And when kids realize that, hey, it's great to be a great teammate, and how rewarding that can be, I think it can be a great experience for that 9th man if they're not playing.
To add to that too, it's experience for the kids to make a Final Four, to make a final, to be on a team, to have a championship. There's kids out there that would die to be on a great team. So if you're the 9th, 10th, or 11th kid on a championship team, it's not a bad thing. You're experiencing something that other kids have never had an experience.
Those are the kids that are finger rolling in layup line because they know they're not getting in.
Yeah.
They don't worry about
They're enjoying
those
being out on
kids
the
have like the
floor. They're-
smile on their face. and-
You play more than the starters a lot of times. It's like the best deal in the world to be the ninth man at Kona.
Do you see that at Merrimack too a little bit?
We're
or-
real. We actually last year I had so many kids, and it's a long story. I wound up with 16 kids last year, and like you said, the parents are the problem, not the kids. But I think as long as, like Keith says, you tell them you don't discourage a kid and say, look, you're like the 10th man now. I don't see a lot of time for you. It's like, hey, you're the 10th guy now. If you improve at any time, you can take any one of these guys' spot. If you get better, then it's the door's there for you. And the only issue I really have is, sometimes parents don't get it. But the kids really, kids know. You come to practice every day, and you're the 12th man, and that, you can't get your shot off, or you're getting it thrown down your throat, or they know where they're at, and they know who's better or not. But I tell them, if you become a distraction to this team at any time, I leave it to I can say you got to leave because I don't want to deal with it.
A big takeaway that I took out of last year's coaches summit, and I think it was Jim Mulvey from Portsmouth who said this, and alluded to the parents, and he says that he does not deal with the parents. He tells the kids, look, this is how we communicate. It's the player and the coach. I'm not taking emails, phone calls from the parents. I'd like to maybe get you guys' philosophies on that. I mean, I assume that Keith's like,
I stole something from Jim Mulvey.
okay, go ahead.
Well, I've stolen
That
multiple.
KJ kid's driving you
multiple things
crazy in
from
the
Jim
kitchen.
Mulvey.
Yeah.
We want to deal with your sons. He said that on your program last year. And I say that now. I say that to the parents. We want to deal with your sons, which is true. And we're trying to teach these boys to be men. And we want to deal with them. And I don't actually have any parent problems. I have a strong administration, and I feel for some other coaches where I know that they have to deal with it. But you explain to the parents what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, and then you stick to it, and it works out fine. But to be honest, I don't have parent problems because I don't deal with them. But we would deal with their sons. That's what we do.
What's the philosophy in Kona?
Yeah, same thing. They're not boys. They're young men, And if they have a problem, they can come to me and we can talk. And the guys know that too. So if you make it clear, I've been lucky. The parents do leave me alone. They let me be. But like Keith said, there's other coaches in my division I know that don't have that luxury. So there's got to be that fine line where parents just got to let the coach do what they need to do.
What about you, Jim?
Yeah, same. For years, our philosophy has been, we're not just creating basketball players. We're trying to turn boys into men. And men don't have their moms call and email when they can't make it to a practice or something like that. So it's not acceptable to do it now. So obviously, if resolution can't be resolved between us and the player, then we'll have a meeting with the parent as well as the player. But it's always got to be player first.
I want to hear. All right, so I saw Rick Carlisle was interviewed amongst other coaches, and they asked, who is the smartest player you've ever coached in your entire career? He said Jason Kidd. He had a great story about, I think, some coach was out on the floor trying to signal a play, and Jason Kidd ran into him intentionally because he knew it would be a technical foul. He didn't get 2 shots in the ball back. Who is the smartest player that you have ever coached in your distinguished career?
I would be. I'm being maybe more biased, but my 2 boys are pretty darn good, smart players. But we've had a lot of good players. But I mean,
Do you have one that comes to mind, like a story or anything like that? Or?
I could have to come back and I can think of one. I'm getting old,
Yeah.
It's like
Please. Who's smart? I will come back to you. Who do you have one that comes to mind? Just like the first kid that pops into mind.
Probably mine would be Duncan Saliga from when I first started coaching at Newmarket.
Yeah.
Just a student of the game and just understood every facet of the game, and just it was a pleasure to coach him. So I would say him.
We had Pete CYO coaching here last week, and he actually said Pete.
Very heady player, that Pete Terrier.
very,
Yeah.
very heady.
I got a couple, but I'd have to say my smartest would probably be Sean Martin, because when I took over, it was a whole new program. We were doing new things, man to man, and Sean was like a second coach on the floor. I mean, he knew exactly what I wanted, and he ran the show for me for 3 years. So I would have to say Sean Martin.
Oh, mine without a question is I had Scotty Fosher, Dave Fosher's son, play for me, and so he had grown up in the Division I basketball environment, and he knew as much as any coach really growing up in it. And he's a smart kid. He's now an assistant coach at Bowdoin, and he's going to be a great head coach someday. And it's great when you have a kid who could actually run practice in the summer, or just keep the kids, or knew what was important and what wasn't important, and all the little stuff straight. So Scotty was clearly, sorry KJ, but Scotty was clearly.
I thought he was easily going to be the call, KJ.
No, there's no way he could have went there.
Because he's not done yet. Because next year KJ be calling timeouts.
Yeah, exactly.
let's. Well, I'll take the huddle. Do you think
Really,
anyone?
I would have to say I thought about it. Eric Gender obviously pops right to your head, but then Dimitri was intelligent, really intelligent basketball wise, and he would ask you like questions, and sometimes you almost didn't even have an answer. I mean, he was way, he'd ask you like, hey, how about this if this happens, and but. The thing about Dimitri, the best story is we're playing Central in the final game of his career, and it was a real tight game. And he's the last guy, and he just looks at me, he goes, "Coach, don't worry about it. This game's over. We got it. Don't worry." And he just walked out, and he played like incredible. I mean, he played. I think he had 35 points, and he just dominated. He took over that game. But we've been very fortunate, Merrimack. There's to name 2 or 3, but there's 50, 60 of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're just really good kids.
I want to ask you guys about what seemed to be our big topic of conversation before we went on film here. We're talking about kids leaving high school early to go to prep. Now, I know probably all of you might have had that situation. I know you for sure, Tim, with Dimitri left and came back. I got to get your takes on this. On is this hurting New Hampshire high school basketball with these kids being pressured by their AAU coaches, these prep schools, parents maybe thinking that they got a better chance at landing a Division I basketball scholarship by going prep? We'll start with you, Tim. Does it kind of make you shudder a little bit to think about that type of stuff?
First off, I think every parent has a right to do whatever they want. It doesn't really matter what I think or anybody else at this table thinks, but my personal philosophy is you have your kids for only so many years, and my kids are all grown up now. I miss them. They were great having them, and I really would feel sad for them to leave as a sophomore or a junior. I do say there is a need for a kid after his senior year if his grades weren't quite right or he was a little young, immature, and after his senior year, I think that's really what the intent of prep schools, and I think it's changed a lot. I think the prep schools are actually recruiting kids to come to their schools, or so us coaches are not. But for me to say Peter Rzinski's kid made a bad mistake going to wherever he went, well, the kid's going and getting a full scholarship at UNH. So that's one example that worked out. But you can cite a lot of other examples that have not worked out, where if they would have stayed at their school, they would have went to that same school no matter what. So I wanted to keep my kids at home. They went and played Division III, had a great time, and it was good. And that worked out that way for me. But everybody has different ideas on that.
What do you think, Eric?
I'd agree with Tim. It's the kid and the parent's choice. But I mean, coaching in Jaffrey and being from a small town, I've had kids that come out of a small town. I mean, just this past year, Sean Martin was the captain of Springfield College, and they made it to the NCAA. Ezra Hodgson was the captain of Plattsburgh State. They made it to the NCAA. They come out of a small town Jaffrey, and they're playing college basketball. I mean, Devin's going to play both baseball and basketball at Keene State, and Rob O'Brien, he did go prep for 1 year. He needed to mature a little bit. He knows that with his grades and stuff like that. That's why he did it. But now he's going to play at Endicott. So, it is possible to stay at the school. But not only that, you only have 4 years to win a state championship. At these prep schools, you go as a sophomore or a junior, you're talking the best prep school in the country. I mean, the prep schools in the country, the schools around here are the best in the country. I mean, are you really going to play? And when you play in those gyms, how many people are there? Unless you're the top notch, how many people are there? There's nothing like, I'll tell you, and these guys will tell you, they've been there. There's nothing like playing in a Final Four or a state championship game where it's packed, it's loud, you can't hear yourself think. I mean, that's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So to give that up when you only have 4 chances at it, that's pretty tough to do.
I did an article a couple years ago on the site, talked to Luke Bonner, Eric Dean, Curtis Arsenault, Will Bayless, and they were all terrific. And we talked about this exact topic. And Curtis Arsenault from Berlin, who plays at Plymouth State, said something really that I identified with, and you're surprised you don't hear more. He said, I wanted to win a state championship at Berlin. I wanted to be always known as I won. I could walk around town. They say that guy won a title when he was in this town. He has his father is a staple in that town, and his family name, and so forth and so on. And that was something that meant a lot to him. I've seen a kid, Chad Knighton's a good example from Lisbon. He wins 2 championships After his junior year, he leaves. He's just short of 1,000 points, so he never gets it. His name's not on the board there. And I'm not saying, that's the biggest thing in life, but your name's on that. I go to your gym, Keith, and I still see those foul charts. I see those kids' names. KJ will be up there, forever. And, and Chad Knighton, was a nice player in prep, but he's not playing in college. And so I wonder, and again, it's his parents' decision. I'm not questioning it, but it's more that you do see that a lot. You see these kids leave, and you wonder what it was all for. And, a kid like Curtis who said, I want to win a title in my hometown. You're surprised you don't hear that more often.
The thing about prep schools is they need kids to pay the money to play. Right? Very, very, very few kids go to prep school for free.
Right.
It was so much.
Even a kid like Brett Hansen had to play his first year.
Yeah, they have to pay. And the reason, you're not going to go to prep school and play for a better person and coach than, say, Jamie Hayes in Newmarket. You're not. You're not going to get better instruction. You're not. But you're going to get kids that are all a year older, and that's why you have this appearance that they're so much better. Because they are. Because they're a lot. Hey, take your varsity and play them against kids all year older. It's different. So the instruction is just as good, but those kids are older, so they do look better. It doesn't mean that Luke wouldn't have gotten a scholarship if he had stayed at Pinkerton, and it doesn't mean that, kids from, look at Cody Ball. He got a scholarship from Londonderry. So
Keith Brown's going to do the same in Pelham.
Right.
He's going to get
a scholarship. So, every parent should make the decision that's best for their kid, and it's bad for us to generalize. Okay, prep school's bad, or you got to stay, or this. But there is something really special about playing with the kids you grew up with your whole life.
Are they knocking, Coach? Are they knocking on your door, ringing your phone, asking about KJ for prep school, or do they stay away because they found out that his coach is the dad?
No, my son, if it was in his best interest, he'd go tomorrow. I mean, believe me, I am so much more of a dad than I am a high school basketball coach. And we did talk about it. He visited multiple prep schools, and at the end of the day, we kind of thought what these guys thought. That it's not going to get him. I mean, his dream is to be a scholarship basketball player. Who knows? But it doesn't get him any closer. For him not to score his 1,000th point next year, or not to win a state championship, and it's tough, and it's a parent's decision, and but I think it's crazy to think that they're going to get better coaching in prep, or they're going to get exposure. Let me tell you, college coaches know their job. They're going to find you no matter how good you are, right? Somebody dug Matt Bonner out of Concord High, and now he's in the NBA. He didn't go prep, and if he had gone prep, he'd still be exactly where he is today. And if he'd played at Conan High School, he'd still be where he is today. And I just think there's a lot of misdirection in terms of what it means to go prep. Yeah, for certain kids, for Wenyan, obviously it was the right choice because he needed 2 years to get older, and now look at him. But it's not a surefire thing to get a college scholarship. It's not like a dead end if you don't go prep. It's an individual journey for each kid that parents make the decision.
On that, I think it's a good point that we can say thank you guys. I mean, Tim Goodrich from Merrimack, Jamie Hayes from Newmarket, Eric Saucier from Kona, Keith Matty from Lebanon. We really enjoyed, this is the best. I know you guys sometimes don't always enjoy these post-game interviews that we do with you guys on camera after the game. At least we usually only do it when you win. But this, to me, is good stuff when we can sit around a table, cool place like Buffalo Wild Wings, and just talk hoops, especially in the summertime when the pressures aren't there of the regular season. So I just want to thank you guys for all coming out here and doing this. It's been a lot of fun for me.
I just want to thank you guys too for having us. It was a pleasure getting here together with you guys, and thank you very much.
Don't beat up on Eric too bad tomorrow night, by the way.
We'll have Milford probably pounding both of us. Who knows?
So I just want to say thanks again to our sponsors from Sentinel Title Services, and thanks to Ben Lee and the folks here at Buffalo Wild Wings in Concord. Great place to come. Bring your team after a game if you're heading through Concord, and enjoy some basketball. All sports here at Buffalo Wild Wings. For Dave Haley and John Kesty on the other side of the camera, I'm Pete Terrier. Enjoy the rest of the summer, everybody.